My name is Peta Downes. I'm the coordinator of the Creative Industries program at the University of Western Sydney College. And the program is proud to present the Creative Professional Public Lecture Series, which is the first one tonight, hosted by Penny City Council and St Mary's Corner Community Cultural Centre. So we thank them for their kind and generous offer to use their space. Tonight we're going to be looking at the idea of the creative entrepreneur and I guess looking at it from 5 different perspectives from creative entrepreneurs or people that work with creative entrepreneurs who will form our panel. And I'll introduce them all individually as we go along. I'm going to firstly talk briefly about the creative industries and the idea of the creative or cultural entrepreneur as the evolutionary model of the traditional artist. In particular, I'm going to focus on traits that are found in the creative entrepreneurs, such as self-motivation, self-employment and risk-taking, which is involved in working in this fashion. And as part of that mini lecture, I'm going to reference a model that was suggested in the article by Charles Ledbetter and Kate Oakley, which identifies typical traits within that. Each of the speakers on the panel are going to talk to you individually about their experiences, how they started as a creative entrepreneur and I guess what has inspired them and what the idea of creative entrepreneur means to them. And they'll also obviously talk about who they are, where they come from and what their organisation does to either promote or help or assist creative entrepreneurs to start their own business. So I'm going to have this really fun moment of running between the lectern and the laptop which is behind me because unfortunately the cable wasn't low enough to stretch to the lectern, so excuse me for one moment while I bring up the first slide. If I could, thanks Chris, always our production manager. Thank you, Chris. So the first point, I guess, in my lecture is to just quickly define the creative industries. And the creative industries obviously have been around now for it's over 12 years, going on 13 years. Firstly defined by the UK, the Blair government in particular, who looked at the industries that were seen to be those that would generate most income and develop the GDP for the UK. And they defined the creative industries as those activities which have their origin in individual creativity, skill and talent, and which have the potential for wealth and job creation through the generation and exploitation of intellectual property. And that interpreted is the creative industries refers to a broad range of activities which contain elements of artistic or creative endeavour. These industries combine the creation, production and commercialisation of content which are artistic in nature, and they usually have an element of copyright, patent and trademark which can be sold and obviously take the form of a good service. So that's a very academic, very political or policy-driven way of interpreting the creative industries. But what does that mean to us as artists? So if you have a quick look at the next one, these are the areas, I guess, that we identify at the University of Western Sydney and University of Western Sydney College as being the sectors that the creative industries is involved in. And these are the areas that produce, I guess, I think it's something like 20% of the GDP, and 40% of that is coming out of our film and television and advertising marketing sectors. But these are the sectors that we identify as being the sectors of the creative industries. So interactive and digital design, which includes gaming and game platforms, and you'll be interested to know that Australia is one of the countries that's at the forefront of that. Music and performing arts, obviously theatre, opera, cabaret, all forms of performing arts, dance, film, television and radio, writing and publishing, and obviously now with the advent of e-publishing and with writing moving more into a digital format, that will evolve in itself. Media and communication, as I said, advertising and marketing, and visual arts. So visual arts obviously encompassing not only the traditional visual arts but also areas such as museums and galleries and the cultural sectors as well, which are things that I guess one of our collegiate universities, QUT and the ARC Centre has done is a lot of research into what the creative industries is and its impact on artists and how artists are actually surviving or working within that sector. And one of the areas that they identified, I guess, as having a skills gap is the area of problem-solving skills, communication skills, initiative and enterprise skills, teamwork skills, learning, management and career goals and planning. So these are the areas that artists traditionally within their vocational training are not necessarily at or good at. And so one of the things that we've identified obviously with the Associate Degree in Creative Industries is a way of actually bringing the creativity to the business and actually finding a way to evolve the traditional artist. So let's have a quick look at the portrait of the traditional artist. When we think of artists, we think of creators of aesthetic beauty with an artistic outcome, with some sort of reflective or political message, something that means something to us as a community or on a social level. We're not necessarily thinking of artists as being anything that are driven towards economics or necessarily business builders. We think of artists in that traditional sense to be financed by sponsorship or patronage through government or through private sponsorship. And these are people that are appreciated and followed by the public and celebrated by the public, and we all have our favourite film idols, we all have our favourite artists that we follow, whether they're a writer or a visual artist. They're evaluated by us, they're held in high esteem, they're denounced by critics and peers, and for them is either fame and fortune or penniless and destitute, which is usually what we're taught at our college or at uni when we are learning to become artists, that this is what may lie in store for you. But no one ever sort of says to you, maybe you should think about how you can use your creativity to build a life for yourself, to build a business. And this is now, I guess, the movement that we are transcending into through the creative industries. So Richard Florida, in his book, recognised the rise of the creative class, recognised that the creative industries has created a new type of artist, and through the advent of digital technology and the convergence of media and the way that we now work on a social level with art, and it's driven by consumers, we have created this creative class. And the creative economy and the idea of the creative industries is drawing spheres of innovation through technological creativity, business through economic creativity, and culture, artistic and cultural creativity into one another in more intimate and more powerful combinations than ever. And this means that artists are finding like-minded artists, communities are coming together, people are moving to places where they can connect with other artists and become creative in that sense as well. And this is what he was talking about in his book. But it sets the scene, I guess, for the type of artists that we are now looking at, and those are the people that want to work for themselves and develop their own sense of business and artistic creativity. So what is a creative entrepreneur? I would love to be able to read this from the screen in front of me, but I'm going to have to turn around. You can read it with me. This is from the British Council's Creative and Cultural Economy program, and this is a program that sets out to educate and instruct artists, and also to obviously encourage them to take on the idea of the creative entrepreneur. And it's a really interesting definition. They bridge the gap between the artist and the audience. They are ranging from book publishers to musicians to music promoters and film producers, and they are the key in defining what culture is, that we consume and how we do it. They are changing the marketplace by playing a vital role in developing innovative business models of production and distribution, highlighting the economic, cultural and often social benefits in doing so. So they're not just creating art, they're looking at ways of servicing the community through creativity, through artistic output, but also in different ways from a community cultural development point of view. So what are the traits of the creative entrepreneur? And this is actually something that Ledbetter and Oakley talk about in their article. It's a great article that comes from a book, Why Do We Need Cultural Entrepreneurs is the name of the essay that this comes from. They're a driving force of growth. Like all entrepreneurs, they see the gap in the marketplace. They look at ways of actually driving forth with their creativity, ways of actually providing a good or a service that isn't necessarily there. A large share of employment within the creative industries is accounted for in self-employed freelancers and micro-business. So we're not talking about Bill Gates. We're talking about the small to medium enterprise that is basically creating these products and services that the bigger businesses want to buy. And somebody said to me, you know, when you're a creative entrepreneur, you don't want to be Bill Gates, you want to be the company that Bill Gates buys, which I think is a really great way of thinking about how you create your business. So creative entrepreneurs are often producers, designers, retailers and promoters all at the same time. There's this great thing about having a creative or like a career portfolio, and that's what a lot of creative entrepreneurs are. They don't just do one thing, they do many. You'll hear from 5 of those people very shortly. They often thrive on informal networks or formal networks through which they organise work, and you know, like most people, they employ friends and classmates from their training. And this information hasn't just come from someone's imagination. These are actually, Ledbetter and Oakley surveyed a group of entrepreneurs just to find out exactly what it was that they had in common in their trades. So they want their business to stay small in order to retain independence and focus on their creativity. They do not see themselves as artists who deserve public subsidy. They want to make their own way in the market, and I think that's really important because obviously all of you share that interest because you're here and you want to hear more about the creative entrepreneur. So we're now moving away from this idea of the model of the handout, I'm an artist, I need funding, otherwise I can't function. It's more about how do I become self-sufficient and how do I work towards that end. So they're members of a wider creative community, which provides them with ideas, contacts, complementary skills, venues and access to the market, as well as intense rivalry and competition, which is really important obviously because, as you know, if you see someone else doing it, you want to do it and you want to do it better. And so this idea of communion or hubs has really come to the forefront, and you know, quite a lot of the hubs that exist now are successful because of the artists that are part of that, because they're feeding off each other in terms of creativity, but they're also cooperating and collaborating. And creative entrepreneurs, and I guess this is the most important thing, play an important part in reviving large cities. We've already seen that happen in Newcastle with Renew Newcastle. We're seeing it with Pop-Up Parramatta. We're seeing it with Pop-Up Rocks. So there's quite a lot of events and organisations that are happening around Sydney and Western Sydney that are working to revive. And I know Penrith City Council certainly is striving for that within their community as well. So what the idea is that this creative entrepreneurialism, entrepreneurship and approach to creating small businesses will do is revive not only the business sector, but will bring people, will make people want to come to the area and will revive it. So culture is not just a source of jobs and income, but a sense of confidence and belonging is something that was one of the traits talked about. So I guess the bottom line about the traits of the creative entrepreneur is that we've chosen, and I've asked 5 very different creative entrepreneurs to take part of our panel discussion tonight. All of these speakers are either a creative entrepreneur or work with creative entrepreneurs or do both. As I said, they're going to introduce themselves as to who they are and how the title of creative entrepreneur